Hi and welcome to my subscriber report. This is a report specifically on my channel where I try and communicate with my subscribers. So if you're not a subscriber to my channel, sorry, you may have come across this for some other reason. Sorry about that. What this is about for those who are new to my channel, and since the last subscriber report, there's been over 1,500 new subscribers, so welcome to you all. And it's about essentially me being able to explain where I want to go with the channel and you being able to provide your feedback. Some of you have been really good and you provide comments on videos as well as by direct message in terms of things about the channel you like, keep the same, and things you'd like changing. These videos are about encouraging more people to do that. Now, some of the changes that might be proposed, I won't necessarily take on board. I might disagree, but you know, what's the harm? You might actually come up with some good ideas. And I have in the past implemented things that have come from suggestions from my subscribers. So the first thing to go over really is the fact that we've now hit 6,000 subscribers. In fact, at the moment it's nearly 6,200. Seems a bit of a strange one to report on because when I got to 1,000 subscribers, I put out a video talking about that. I think I may have done the same at 2,000, I'm not sure. Didn't really do much in between. And the main reason why 6,000 sounds a bit of a strange one, why not 5,000? The reason essentially is about targets. Now, I think when you're on a project, you can't help but set yourself little targets. And I know it's silly to set yourself a target for a number of subscribers because you can't really know what's realistic and what's sensible. But I did. There was a time at which I set myself some targets. And the target I set myself was 6,000 subscribers by the end of 2016. Well, we've now hit that and we've still got over a month to go. So bring on 7,000, I suppose. We have to change the target. So that's why I sort of like to talk about that. So in essence, over the course of the year, it's sort of dipped up and down. There's been good points and not so good points. Overall, I think we have to judge that the channel has done okay. It's done pretty well, I think. And hopefully in 2017, it will also do pretty well. And we'll just see where we are there. Now, just to explain to people what this channel ultimately is about, what I would like is there's a number of things I am interested in, and that sort of hopefully comes across in my channel. One is raiding, two is playing Retribution Paladin, as well as general PvE in terms of the game, whether it's solo content or dungeons or whatever. I would like that by the time the next expansion is coming out for Alpha, that I'm in a position whereby I can sort of throw my voice into the ring, so to speak. Sorry about the mixed metaphor. But yeah, I'd like to be in a position where we can get some real discussion going on YouTube, because there's usually decent discussion on forums every now and then. It's usually a bit aimless. But to have some real strong representation on YouTube for the parts of the content that I enjoy, which tends to be a bit sporadic, it has to be said. That's the reason why I chose YouTube as my main medium for doing the content that I do. So in terms of what I've been doing recently on the channel and in terms of what people have been sort of asking for. So the first thing is, I had a comment really recently about the intro and the outro. Now, the comment was basically, lose the intro and outro songs. They're really annoying. First of all, they're not songs. Songs have lyrics. But anyway, I know what you mean. They're really annoying and bad to hear every video. Love your content. Okay, thanks very much for the last part. The intro obviously is really important. The outro, I would say less so if you don't like the outro, because at the end of the video, you can just stop it there. It is quite important that I have an intro and an outro. It doesn't necessarily, though, have to be in exactly the same format it is now. And in fact, as I said at the start, when I do actually take on advice that people give, the intro was probably the first one. I think, you know, way back when, it might have even been earlier this year or maybe even last year, because I started doing the channel properly September 2015. One of the things someone said was the intro was a little bit long, so I actually cut that down. Okay, there has to be an intro though. There has to be an intro for a couple of reasons. First of all, there needs to be a style to the videos. Second of all, there is some important information there. When you're trying to build a channel, it is important that you try and connect to other platforms as well. I am not super active on lots of other platforms, or indeed any other platforms, but I try to be active. So, for example, having something at the beginning that has my Twitter, that has my Twitch page, Patreon page, whatever it happens to be, that is important and I want that there. Now, you could argue that there doesn't have to be an intro section as such. I could just have that flash up at the bottom of the video without anything there. But I do think having a short intro, again, it's there for that sort of style of video. It's like you listen to that and that's the channel. If there is some way of doing it differently, of course, I am all ears. If people have got sort of views on that, by all means put them there. Because the other thing to bear in mind is, and I've said this before and I will say it again, I am trying to produce content behind two other priorities. First of all, work. I'm not a full-time YouTuber, of course. So I have a fairly involved job as well. That obviously comes first. Secondly, I am a raider. I know a lot of full-time YouTubers, some of them, okay, will be, or some WoW YouTubers, say full-time or not, will be raiders as well, but most are not. Most do it casually. So what they're doing in game naturally ties in with that. But I have raiding commitments, so that will always come first, or second in this case. But first of all, the channel. Then there is the channel itself. As a result, it's important. There's so much I want to do. Like right at this moment in time, I have a list of content I would like to do. I have long ago abandoned, sometimes I slip out one and I shouldn't. I've long ago abandoned the idea of saying, okay, in the next week I'm going to have content on this, 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 and this. Because time gets in the way or something else crops up. You know, like all the hoo-ha about the mythic hell you kill, for example. And I end up basically having to do something else instead, and it pushes that back. And then content that you said you were going to do ends up getting pushed back and back and back to the point where it's not done. There's some content that I said would come out in September. It's still not out now. I still haven't done it. So I've now stopped saying it. I'm not going to... The only content I promise each week, and even then I don't say which day, even though it's been the same day almost all the time, is the weekly news thing. That's the only one. The rest of it, I have to decide. So I've got a right load of stuff I want to do. And I know I don't have time to do it all. And that's a shame. So the only way to do as much of it as I can is to work efficiently. My focus for 2017 is going to be really, really efficient. I have already tried to become more efficient throughout 2016. Part of that efficiency is that I have an intro section that is done as a separate video and I can just import it into every other video. If I were to do an intro in any other way, it would naturally take more time. And it wouldn't take loads of time. You probably think, oh, it doesn't take that much time. Even an extra few minutes on every video before you've added an extra half hour on the week at least, depending on how many videos you do. And that's a couple of hours over the course of a month. Well, that's a whole vlog. I mean, you know, a couple of hours is one of my simpler videos to do, usually. I mean, this is the simplest of all. Vlog into a camera, which probably won't even need editing. Just put some titles at the front, put the intro in. The intro is still going in this one. And the outro at the end, render it and upload it. And even that takes a certain amount of time. So I do welcome suggestions, because the other reason I say this at the moment is, and I've said this to people who have been my subscribers for a while, but some of you are a bit newer who will not necessarily know this. I work as a teacher. So during term time, which is where we are now, I have a certain amount of time that I can spend on the channel. I like to spend most of that time essentially doing the content, not doing lots of other stuff, lots of design stuff. I like to do the content. Then between terms, when we get like breaks, and one's coming up at Christmas, a couple of weeks off at Christmas, obviously there'll be like other things to do as well, social things. But I will have time to sit down and do various things. One of the things I will need to do is to redo the Retribution Paladin Guide for 7.1.5, or at least get a lot of the groundwork done, because that's an epic project in itself. But I'll also have time to do any other design features, and that may well be to redesign the intro and outro. But, so, as I say, I do want one. I'm going to have one. And it needs to be distinctive. It has to be distinctive for branding purposes, if nothing else. We want to call it that. But any thoughts on that, I'm absolutely all ears to. Now, next thing, I had comments on the quality of the videos. I couldn't actually understand this, because someone said it a bit ago, and then my guild leader said it as well, when I put up the Mythic Odin kill, that the quality of the video didn't seem to be very good. And he actually suggested I get a better computer. My computer's pretty awesome. I'll show you how awesome it is. Actually, Nico, you can just see the case. It is pretty awesome, though. Right. The issue was, and I didn't understand this, like I'm looking at my videos when I watch them back on like Windows Media Player, and it looks pretty good quality. It is good quality. But then what it's uploading to is not. It was only uploading it to the maximum resolution you could even select is 720p. Now, of course, whatever resolution it shows on your thing is okay, I'm not responsible for. But when you go into the settings and try and change it yourself, it's only showing 720p as being the maximum. And it should be in 1080 because that's the video. And I've been mucking about this week. I finally, I think, cracked it. Don't ask me how. So a couple of videos that I've put out, I think, this weekend have been 1080p. I have to remember, I'm not going to say everyone will be now. But it hopefully should be. So when the next Mythic Kill certainly comes up for Guam, hopefully, I don't know how long that's going to take. Hopefully not that long. Then that should be as well. Okay. So hopefully that issue has been fixed. Should get higher resolution videos going up now. The next thing I've been working on recently is screenshots, which sounds as a strange thing. Screenshots has taken a very long journey. So I've talked about this before. So when I say screenshots, what I actually mean is thumbnails. What am I talking about? Thumbnails, sorry. So I started off when I did the channel like most people I suppose would, and didn't do thumbnails at all. I just let it select one randomly. That's not particularly good, because when you think about it and you're looking in a search, you know, it's not telling you anything about the video. You have to read the title. Titles aren't all that prominent. Then what I did, when I started to do a wider range of stuff for the channel, so I had like Retribution Paladin stuff, but then I had also general raiding stuff. Then I had more general WoW vlogging stuff. Then I had, at the time, Legion had been announced and we were getting ready for the alpha coming out, so I had specific Legion stuff as well. And I was well aware that some people, looking at my channel, some people would just be interested in the Retribution Paladin stuff. Some people would be interested in the general raiding stuff, but maybe they play a mage or something. They're not interested in the Ret Paladin stuff. So I tried to make it clear what the content was from that point of view, so they weren't clicking on videos that were not going to be of interest to them. But I was doing that from a point of view of seeing it in the recommended channels thing rather than an actual search. So then later on what I realized I needed to do was to do title slides that actually, and this was quite recent, it took me a long time to cotton on, I'm not all that bright at times, to actually have the title of it or a similar title on the thumbnail itself. Now, some of these were better than others, and they weren't necessarily super clear. And I did have a comment about the way I did the text a couple of weeks ago, saying it didn't look very good, which I have to agree with. At the time, I wasn't sure what I would do differently. But I think I've now happened upon a happy combination of designs that seems to work. So hopefully, the last few title thumbnails look much better now. I could still do with spending some time on... I'd ideally like to create a style of those as well that's distinctive to me, but that's probably lower priority. But I would like to do that, and maybe I will do some work on that this Christmas as well. So hopefully, yeah, hopefully the thumbnails now are looking a lot better. So in terms of some comments that were put down on the last subscriber report, so let's go through these. So one comment was, for these videos, I would consider, I think this was in particular for the WoW Flash one, perhaps, the sort of more journalistic type things. I would consider reversing the size of you in the picture like news anchors do. We don't really gain anything from that giant sign in the middle of the screen. That must mean that one. Okay. I'm not sure. I can see the merit in it. It's not that I'm not sure because I don't think it's a good idea. I do. But it comes back to efficiency. So I absolutely agree that what would be a really good idea if when I do either something like this or more specifically the WoW Flash, I think the WoW Flash would be the better example, is to have a window up there somewhere perhaps that had an image that's related to the content I'm talking at that time, like you would see in a news program. Absolutely get that. The issue is, as soon as you start doing it and that becomes the style, you have to stick to it, and it comes again down to time. Sometimes I don't have a lot of time to put that. I've obviously, to actually put the video together, if you see what I mean. Because when you consider the amount of time I have to spend on, first of all, working out what I want to talk about, and then actually doing the thing to video, and then the rest of the editing that needs doing, and that. And sometimes I have to put graphics in, and sometimes I don't. Whereas with this system, with this suggestion, I'd have to do some sort of graphic for everything. And again, it's one of those things, it doesn't sound like it's a lot of time, but when you add it all up, it actually is. It's something that I would probably say maybe in the future, but it's one of those things, I wouldn't want to do it just every now and then, and not, because then it's a bit haphazard. I'd want to make sure that I could definitely do it well every time, but I can see the sort of merit in it. But certainly the idea of redesigning a general background for when I'm doing stuff to camera, and I'm not showing gameplay in the background like here, is one that appeals, but it would require me to design something specifically. First of all, my CAD skills are not that great. Second of all, I probably don't have great... I have Photoshop, I suppose I could do something with that, but I have limited understanding of it. So it's one of those things I'd probably put off till later, but there is merit in it. So it's probably a case of not right now, maybe next year. So I had some general sort of thanks on here. One question asking where from England I am. I'm from Yorkshire originally. I live now in Lincolnshire, in Scunthorpe specifically. Okay, so what other comments did we have? Oh yes, here was one. How about, this is one I've taken on board, as you can probably tell already. It said, how about calling this series Thete Gaming Subscriber Report? I get it now, but when I first came along, I figured you'd talk about WoW subscribers. Yes, I hadn't thought of that, actually. I can see how that can be a thing. Especially as Blizzard now don't actually reveal their subscribers. Yeah, I certainly wouldn't want people coming across the video thinking I've got insider knowledge or something. I don't, I haven't got a clue. So yeah, so actually, rather than just calling it the subscriber report, actually calling it the Thete Gaming Subscriber Report is a good idea. That one has been implemented. Now, comment here, because I've talked about, obviously, there's several things that my channel does. One of the things that a lot of people latch onto is the Retribution Paladin stuff, because I think, essentially, because you don't really get much in the way of detailed and accurate Retribution Paladin guides on YouTube. But that's not just what the channel's about. So what I was talking about is like the idea, because I'm working as well, and I'm not a full-time YouTuber, but I try and you know, I'm essentially competing with full-time YouTubers. And the comment was, I wouldn't worry about competing with other YouTubers. I think you're the only person who covers PV Retribution Paladin on YouTube, which I probably am to this level. But there is other content I do as well. So I do sort of feel that I am competing with other YouTubers. Yes, there was a comment about if I do start streaming. I don't stream regularly, of course. There are many issues to streaming, which I'll talk about in a moment. But the comment here was, my recommendation to you if you want to start live streaming Q&As would be to post a quick 30-second video on channel maybe 15 minutes before you begin. Yeah, I think what I've done now with the Retribution Q&A that I did yesterday, which was mixed into a stream of gameplay as well, which it's not something I was trying out. It was just something because of effect, not double booking as such, because I'd announced I was going to do that Q&A before the raid was announced. It was an optional raid anyway, but we want the artifact power and the potential for legendaries. It's not something I will necessarily do the next time. But yeah, the idea of, so what I did is a week in advance I put out a video saying that it was going to be the following week, and then the same day as well, a few hours ahead. I didn't do it like 15 minutes before. I don't know whether that's really beneficial, but I did it on Twitter. I mean, it's the usual thing. If you want to find out when I'm doing these things, follow me on Twitter. I do say on Twitter as well when I'm doing these things. But yeah, I don't stream a lot. Now, I'll go through, again, for people who may be new, the potential reasons for this. So there'll be two types of content I could potentially stream. The first type is my raiding, and the second type is my general solo stuff. So we'll take the general solo stuff first. First of all, general solo stuff. That's what I ended up doing with the Q&A yesterday, but that was just because there was a theme. There was something we were specifically talking about. General streaming of just casual content, I don't see as being particularly for me. I know a lot of people do it. Well, therein lies part of the reason not for me not to do it. Because if I'm going to stream that sort of content, it'd be fine if we're having a discussion about something. So that'd be great. But if I just started doing casual content, like on a weekly basis or something, first of all, if you've only got a few people watching, because I have tried this before, you get a few people watching who don't really say anything, and then you feel that you have to start talking and jabbering away, and it's just like, no, it's just not fun. The second reason is because Mythic Plus dungeons are a thing. So if I am randomly asked by my guild, or anyone in my guild if you want to join this group, obviously I'm going to say yes if I've got the time. That means going on Discord and going on the voice for Discord to listen, because Mythic Plus works better if you can talk to each other, and of course it's more sociable as well. Discord seems to have an issue with my streaming. So, well, there's actually two issues. First of all, if I'm talking to people on Discord, you won't be able to hear me talking to you because some other bugger will be talking over me, and you'll be listening to that as well. And the second thing is there's been a bit of an issue with Discord affecting my Twitch chat for reasons I still don't know. The only way I got it to work yesterday was by exiting from Discord completely, which fixed it. So it's definitely Discord that's got the issue. But that'd be no good because in my guild we use Discord as our voice comms. So that would, yeah, you know what I mean. So comments on that one, but that's my issue with the difficulty there. So then it comes to streaming raiding. That would be okay. But of course, if I'm doing proper raiding, as in not just what I was doing yesterday, casual stuff, but actual guild raiding during the assigned hours when we're actually doing serious farm or progress, obviously I'm not going to have the chat there. So although I put a little note in the title that can't see the chat, a lot of people still, I see afterwards, have tried to tell me things anyway. So I need a way of making it clear to everyone that I can't see the chat. All you're doing is watching me raid, and there's no interaction there. The other problem is, of course, you don't always know if you're going to be in or not. Sometimes you swap in and out of bosses. If it's farm bosses, it may be that I don't need loot on particular bosses. If it's progress bosses, I might not be needed on that boss, or there might be better 20 people to be on it. So it's the unreliability of it as well. And of course, it's not like if I'm just sat out, I can put the text chat up and start a conversation, because I'll still be listening in to everyone else doing the raid, which means, again, conversation very difficult if I'm trying to talk and someone else is talking over me. Okay, so that's the reason why I don't do a lot of streaming. But when I do streaming, yes, in terms of getting, explaining it, it is a good idea, coming back to this point, about putting videos on. First of all, I would say, if I know a week in advance I'm going to do something, put it out a week in advance, and also on the same day as well. And maybe it's worth putting out just, let's say, an hour before. I'm not sure about 15 minutes before, how good that is, but maybe an hour before I could do in future. I think that was it for that one. Right, okay, and we had one other comment in terms of suggestions for the thing, so I'll read it out. Hi, Thete. First of all, got to say, I love the niche of Ret-specific channel. It's not Ret-specific, but there's a lot of Ret stuff like this, and it really appeals to me. Things I would suggest would be videos for the new content that can be put up ahead of time. For example, a loot overview of Kara, TOV, Nighthold, detailing things like trinkets of interest or the unique chests in Kara, for example. That's possible, yes. That's the sort of thing I could certainly do. I suppose I'd have to do it for Nighthold now. Maybe that's something I could do in 3 weeks. I've got 3 more weeks of work, and then I get a week off. Well, I get 2 weeks off, really, but one of them's Christmas. So I get a week off. Maybe that's something I could do in there. I did do one for 7.1.5 in general in terms of looking at the legendaries, of course, assuming that's the sort of thing you mean. Yes, I could certainly do some more of that. Mythic Plus is another gap I feel the channel could be great for, such as Ret tip videos for each 5-man in general. And then it says advice for certain affixes like using Shield Avengers on Sanguine Pools. The difficulty with doing specific guides on each of the dungeons in general, I have done a general one for Mythic Plus dungeons. The difficulty with doing them for individual dungeons is I don't always do them. I don't do a full set each week. You know, I do a few, and it's whatever keystone we have that we're prepared to do, depending on the affixes that week. So it'd be very difficult to do that today. And then the second point is actually another good reason, sort of why not, because the different affixes will change your approach to them anyway. But as and when I feel I've got enough more general tips for any content, and that includes dungeons, I've already brought out 2 for dungeons in Legion as well, and it's, you know, it's not a stretch to suppose at some point I'll decide there's more worth talking about as well. I will do that, but I don't think the idea of bringing out a Ret specific one for individual dungeons is a go, just because I don't do every dungeon every week, or even, you know, there might be a dungeon I haven't done in ages. I haven't done Mythic plus Eye of Ashara, for example, for quite a while. So, and as I say, your approach to it depends on the affixes. It'd actually be better to talk about the affixes rather than specifically about the dungeons. But yeah, because it's so complex for that reason, it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one. But anyway, so those were the sort of questions that were answered specifically about the channel. Again, you know, comments down here. I will, if I'm not able to reply to them. I'm now getting really into the position where I get so many comments now. I really can't reply to all of them. I get over 10 comments a day on videos, and I get several direct messages as well. So apologies if you don't get direct replies back. I do try and do some, but I think it's probably better that I at least read the comments and reply to some of them than try and reply to as many as possible, and then there's some comments I don't even get to read. And sometimes when people ask for certain bits of information, I usually, you know, sometimes I might not reply to it specifically, but if I do a video on it, then it sort of get answered by that, hopefully, I hope. But if anyone does have any comments, as I say, do put them down, please. I certainly will be reading to all these and replying if necessary, but mainly the reply will be in making changes as necessary or not, but certainly bringing it up in the next subscriber report as well. The next subscriber report, normally I don't really know when I'm going to do the next one because it depends on various things, but this one I sort of will, because I want to do a annual review report, a big one, at the end of the year. So that will be like last week in December. I don't know exactly what date, as close to New Year's Eve as possible, but I will want to do a full-blooded review as well. So a very long one, a nice long discussion, nice little podcast for you to listen to while you do world quests if you want, just like this one could have been. But keep those comments coming through, keep those suggestions in, and just because I don't agree with the suggestion doesn't mean to say it wasn't worth saying it, because it can sometimes spark thoughts on something else. And also it doesn't necessarily mean that I wouldn't like the next comment or suggestion you come up with. But also try and explain them as well. I mean, the best suggestions are the ones where you explain why and you explain an alternative. That's even better, especially if it's something you want to change about the channel. And also don't forget to put in things that you actually like about the channel that you want to retain, because obviously if a load of people say, oh no, you shouldn't put that in your channel, and I go, oh, okay, you might have a point, but then a load of other people did like it and just didn't say, then so keep the comments coming, and yeah, I'll see you later.